Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon for the first ever Sustainability in Business Expo. My name is Elena Karpova. I'm a professor in the Department of Consumer, Apparel, and Retail Studies at University of North Carolina, Greensboro. It is my pleasure to moderate this panel today of our talented guest speakers. To begin, I would like to remind about Zoom etiquette. We ask you to keep your video off and your mic on mute. We very much encourage and welcome all of your questions to help make this panel and discussion on sustainability thought-provoking and vibrant. Please enter your questions in the chat at any point during the talk. Maddie is very kind to monitor the chat and will read questions. And she will also include the bios of the speakers in the chat so you can get a little additional information. Thank you, Maddie. So I'm thrilled to introduce our speakers today, who will discuss sustainability in business practice across 4 different industries. Lois Forde-Kohler is Family Care Sustainability Director for Procter & Gamble. Wave your hand, right there. She's based in Cincinnati, Ohio. And they have been planting trees all day today. So thank you so much, Lois, for finding the time to join our conversation.
You're welcome.
Next, thank you. Next, Rejaul Hassan is Global Sustainability Manager for VF Corporation that is based right here in Greensboro, North Carolina. Hi, Rejaul.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Elena, for inviting. Really happy to be here.
Thank you. Tiffany Reynolds is General Manager for the Proximity Hotel in Greensboro.
Hello, good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, for joining us. And we have Jaleesa Whitley, who is University Relations Manager for Cisco Systems, and she's based in Cary, North Carolina.
Hi, go Spartans.
Thank you, Jaleesa. All right, to start our discussion today, please share what sustainability means for you and how you became passionate about it.
Yeah, so I will kick that off. To me, the first part of that question, sustainability for me is an action word. It means to me to bring it means being socially and economically responsible. Again, it's something that you have to put in action. It's about being accountable to your community, not just in an environmental way, but in a fiscal way as well, and making sure that the people in your community have all of their basic needs fiscally and environmentally. And how I got passionate about it, I have to be honest, I didn't really know much about sustainability until my senior year at UNCG. Again, go Spartans, very, very proud to be an alumni. And we had to do a project, forgive me, I do not recall the name of this course. I do remember my professor though, was Dr. James. And this was my senior year. We had to do a project on sustainability. And I had to work with like 4 other people, which was the worst. Having to be responsible for 4 other people. But it came together very well. And we put together what is now, I think, still active, which is the UNCG Garden, to help students who might not have the extra income to be able to get free fruits and vegetables available to them seamlessly on campus. So we developed a business plan to be able to implement that UNCG garden. So that is something that made me very passionate about sustainability and helped me to pick a company that was also very passionate about sustainability as well.
Thank you so much, Jaleesa. for sharing. Anyone else would like to comment on this?
Sure, Dr. Allen, I can go about it. And I also have actually a little background story, how I really came to the sustainability world. To talk a little bit about my background, I've been born and brought up in the mega city, Dhaka, which is the capital of Bangladesh. And it's the second largest apparel manufacturer and exporter in the world, just up behind China. And the country is very reliant on textile manufacturing and the export business. So when I grew up, after my graduation, I joined for one of the largest apparel retailer as a buyer. And I was visiting a lot of different factories, negotiated the pricing and the contract. And that's the first time I really get introduced with the apparel manufacturing and the labor conditions and what happens inside the factory. And a few years after that, really, that Rana Plaza factory collapse happened in Bangladesh, which is one of the largest industrial disasters so far, killing more than 1,000 people in one of the incidents. And I was really very young and, how do I say that? Maybe we kind of novice and kind of very entry-level, like it was my first job. But it's really deeply scratched my young mind. I mean, that time I didn't know really a lot of the systemic issues, the global sourcing map, and why things happen this way, not the other way. But I think I was very confident about one thing, that there must be a better way of doing business. There must be a more responsible way of managing your sourcing business, right, all over the world. And that makes me really passionate about sustainability, and that really brought me here all the way to study here in the school on the sustainability and the supply chain, and eventually come to this profession. And I'm very proud to work for VF, and one of the best places really to work in sustainability in the apparel space. So to me, I really deeply feel the pain of those people who lost their life in that incident. To me, sustainability is more like really respecting the people. It's about justice, and it's about doing the business in a responsible manner.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rejaul. Very good comments.
Sure.
All right. I can add too. So I'm Lois Forde-Kohler, and I think for me, one of the reasons that sustainability is near and dear to my heart is that I grew up on a farm in Northeast Iowa, and caring for the earth was something that I watched my dad do on a day in, day out basis from the time I was a little girl. And that included ensuring that the proper safe chemical application occurred for his crops. And we lived on very hilly topography. And so it was very important to manage erosion and preserve the soil. And so my dad was very proactive about this sort of thing when I was a kid. And so having buffer strips to ensure that runoff wasn't going to cause destruction and wash away all of the topsoil that was so precious for growing crops and ensuring that you were going to be able to have a livelihood. And when I went to graduate school, I studied at the Institute of Paper Science and Technology, and that institution was really created to help form scientific generalists in the pulp and paper industry. But that was where I first got my exposure to forestry and beginning to understand the journey of working forests. And working forests are healthy forests, and they are the way that you use the resource, but then replant and restore and regrow in order to ensure that you continue to have trees available for all of the coming generations as you go forward. So today, in my sustainability role with P&G, I ensure that our FSC, Forest Stewardship Council, chain of custody certificate is managed appropriately, and that we within the company label and use FSC trademarks. I also get the chance to look at all of our sustainability footprints around energy, water, and waste for the family care business. And so it's gratifying every day to feel like you get to do something that is taking care of the earth and hopefully making things better for my kids when they get to inherit this.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your personal stories and making this sustainability concept a little more alive and a little more relatable. So since you are working at 4 different industries, could you please share with us perhaps major sustainability challenges in your respective industries?
So I'll start with that one. Hello, everybody. I'm in the hospitality industry, which the question might be, what isn't a major issue right now for us? Actually, depending on what part of the segment that you're looking at, So, if you were a small family restaurant owner or a large convention owner in, I don't know, DC, you might say it's, profit. It's the economic side. And probably if you're a guest, you might say, gosh, the industry really needs to, they've got issues around the environmental side. But really where I see across the board, and I love that some of us have already talked about this, is the social side and the impact on people. So, our industry, depending on, where things are located, and again, what segment you're in, really has, in some cases, a history of exploiting people and exploiting areas, particularly where, the law is not controlled very well in other countries and whatnot. So, and certainly the environment of what's happening close to home, just makes the point that helping people succeed and making sure that there's fairness and giving people opportunities is by far, kind of the biggest challenge right now that I think we're still working through. So definitely the people side of things, and that can go in 1,000 different directions, but yeah, I think that should be the priority for sure.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Yes, definitely the people aspect is very, very important in sustainability.
Yeah, I can add to that as well. And Tiffany, I think I mirror your sentiment. I work in tech and I feel the same way. What isn't a challenge when it comes to sustainability? Working in tech, oh my goodness, sustainability is I feel like for us and our competitors, it's an uphill battle, honestly. When you think about tech and our products in particular, the first thing that comes to mind for me and a lot of our consumers is plastic, because we use a lot of plastic to create our products, and that is a big problem. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but what we find in this world as a society is that people are constantly throwing away old technology, right? So this is a big challenge for us in the tech industry. And we're constantly having to think about that. How can we make our products more sustainable? And it's very difficult to do that when everyone wants the latest and greatest new piece of technology every 6 months to a year. So I think that is definitely one of our biggest challenges when it comes to sustainability.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
Yeah. Dr. Elena, I can add from apparel industry point of view. I personally feel apparel footwear, this industry is somehow very unique. And the reason I say unique because the clothing that we wear is kind of the way how we symbolize ourselves, right? It's the way how we send messages to people who we are. So it's something very, very connected to our heart or how we present ourselves. So thinking about that, I think it's really hard to see when the statistics say that apparel is one of the most polluting industry in the world. It's just after oil industry, I think the second largest polluter in the world. And it's really painful to see that. And I think if we really deep dive into the sustainability side, in the environmental side, probably for apparel and footwear, some of the biggest challenges is the climate change. and how we really act according to the Paris Accord that all the big corporations have been committed, how we really track down all our footprint, not only in the materials production, but all kind of processing and other operations, and then identify the hottest spot, deploy the right program to reduce it year over year. But also another part is really the circularity and the circular economy, right? How do you make a cradle to cradle all the product and portfolio that we have? And how do we recycle? And can we give a second life to your product? Can we repurpose the product? Can you use the regenerative materials when you emit the product? I think this really remains some of the burning topics today in the industry on the environmental side. And on the social side, I think knowing that in apparel and footwear has been produced offshore since last several years for the Western countries. So it's really your operation is far out of your sight, and maybe the max you have a visibility in the tier 1 if you are a really large company, but you don't know what's happening in the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. And it's a very labor intensive industry, right? So human labor rights, how you really treat your worker and the worker well-being remain really a very important part. And to make sure that we trace all the way in our supply chain to the maybe multiple layer or multiple tier, and ensure that there is no severe human rights violation or labor rights violation there. They're working in a safe place and safe condition. So this remains some of the, I think, key challenges for the apparel industry.
Thank you, Rejaul. Definitely, you can see common thread running across the 4 different industries: people, consumption, new products development, and how do you reconcile the overall development, new technology, new products with generating waste, right? So thank you for addressing them overall challenges. What about solutions in your industries to address some of those challenges? How your companies are working on it? What might be big ideas out there to help make the industry in the world more sustainable?
So I'll start with that one again. First of all, I think it really comes down in our industry to leadership. And, you know, we have, again, so many chains in this country. We have restaurant chains, we have hotel chains, and a lot of the decisions that are made around sustainability are happening at higher levels. So, you know, managers, general managers are not in the position to be able to make decisions about what types of products they buy, or, you know, what kind of values the company, you know, tries to portray or wants to hold. So I think it's really important to have leaders that are committed to addressing these issues, and you know, people who are willing to admit and accept responsibility for what's happening. And you know, we need to talk about these things, particularly when it comes to the human side, you know, and create goals that are measurable, and you know, and really hold people accountable at the individual businesses to carry through what the corporate goals are. So not just writing goals, but, you know, we don't want to just do something. We want to be something. We want to live something. And that needs to be, you know, someone that's a good neighbor and someone that cares for the world and her people. And so, you know, really just relying on that upper level to commit and to, you know, make sure that they're walking their talk. And I think that's a big thing for us, for sure, in hospitality.
Very good.
Yeah, we have a couple of things that I've seen with my company in trying to resolve some of the sustainability challenges that we face. So one thing, as I mentioned, you know, the challenge that we face with the overuses of plastic. So in-house, I work in our RTP office here in North Carolina, which is basically Raleigh. Again, everyone wants to get the latest and greatest, newest technology piece. So in-house, what we have are, for lack of a better term, basically big bins or dumpster bins where people can just dump old pieces of technology, whether it's a computer screen, a keyboard or mouse, anything like that. If it's something that you've used and it's just like, I want a new one, instead of just throwing away, you put it in that bin. And what it allows for everyone else to do that works in the building is we're able to dumpster dive, literally. And if someone else needs a mouse, like, oh man, I need a mouse, they can just go to that bin and crawl in it a little bit and get a mouse. Instead of buying something completely new, we're basically recycling essentially that old technology so we don't just throw it away. So kind of similar to what Tiffany was saying, it starts with leadership. And that's what we find here in my company. It starts with us. So how can we expect our consumers to value sustainability if we don't do it ourselves? So I really like that. And even if we don't use it, I know for me, my mom needed a computer screen, and she didn't care if it was a $200 or $300 computer screen. Someone at my company put one in the dumpster bin, and I grabbed it out and I gave it to her. I was like, hey, I got one at the office, and I gave it to my mom, and she was able to use it. It was in perfectly good condition. It was refurbished. So I really like that we do that. Something else that we did right before shutdown due to COVID-19, they piloted my office again, our campus in RTP, and we are 100% green. So all of our silverware, all of our cups, everything is 100% recyclable. We got rid of all of the plastic stuff. And even down to my team, I work in university recruiting. So I'm the person that comes on campus to see these wonderful students here, like we have on the panel today. And what you all may see with the recruiters and everyone that attends career fairs, constantly giving out swag and giveaway items. What we've done, we instead of like plastic straws, we give away metal straws. So we thought that was something really cool, and the students really take to it. Again, prioritizing that sustainability push. And then one last thing that I personally really like, on campus, all of the compact cars or any electric car or hybrids get first priority parking. So for me, someone who does drive a compact car, that is the best. So I never have to worry about parking in the back. My company wants to reward you for taking sustainability and environmental health seriously. So if you drive those type of cars, you get to park in the front. And I really like that. Along with that, more than half of our roles in my company have work from home options so that we can cut down on that pollution, that car pollution and those gas emissions that come from driving on the road. So a lot of us are able to, even before COVID, a lot of us were working from home anyway. So those are some of the things that we're implementing to kind of resolve those issues surrounding sustainability.
Thank you so much, Jaleesa. Wonderful examples, and some of them are relatively easy. I think the dumpster dive is such a great idea, especially would be here on campus, right? When many students have extras or they don't need something any longer, and some students would love to have it, right? And instead of just throwing it away, reuse it and extend the life of products sounds like a wonderful idea. Since all of the industries that you work for are consumer oriented and work so much with the consumer, how do you see the role of people, consumers, like all of us, in making the industries that you work for more sustainable and helping to achieve the sustainability goals that maybe your company has?
I can start with that one, Dr. Elena. So I think, given that we're from apparel and footwear and having some of the powerful brand in our portfolio, like North Face, Vans, and Timberland, we are very well connected with the consumer. And apart from practice, I also do the research in apparel area. So I've seen that connection, that how consumer can play really a super critical role, because given that the very complex structure of apparel value chain that we produced 10,000 miles away, and then it came and then it get distributed, there is e-commerce, and it's really a very spreaded supply chain and value chain. I think it's the way that the reason it becomes like there have been some terrible practice in the supply chain. There's been pollution. There's been things went really south because these things are happening behind the consumer. We didn't have the visibility, right? But in the recent days, when there's a much more developed technology, we have access to social media, and we are increasingly more aware and more educated, we can really see that reflection. Like if you see that these days, the Gen Z, they want a more sustainable clothing, right? They want to know where the product is coming from, and if it's been produced in a fair factory. So I think if you really want to move the needle and keep moving the things in a positive direction, I think consumer has a very critical role. We all need to continue to ask the brand and the large manufacturer and the retailer that where the product is coming from, how it has been made, if it is made in a fair factory, in a fair labor condition. I mean, from the brand side, I believe we also have a responsibility to communicate to the consumer in a much better way, and definitely all the brands are working towards that direction. But I think as a consumer, we also have that responsibility. Like when you go to the store, try to understand that, do your little research. And that's one part. And I think this other part is, how do you make sure you are endorsing the right brands, right? Because if we listen to the consumer and we respond and we spend millions of dollars in our sustainability program, for example, in the VF sustainability, we have more than 100 people. There is really a huge expense. So to make sure that you are doing the right things, even things are 10,000 miles away. So when a brand responds to that request from the consumer and spend and do a strong program, as a consumer, how do you go back and we endorse that brand? Maybe we become a loyal consumer to them. Maybe we spend a little bit more for our product, but we feel much better because we know the product is coming from a fair supply chain. So if we keep endorsing the right brand, I think the things will move in the right direction, right? Because or else, so what is the incentive for the brand, right? To be more responsible, more sustainable if we are not getting the response from the consumer. So it's a both-way road, and we need to meet in the middle. And in that direction, I think consumer has really a powerful role. And I mean, Dr. Elena, you are also an important actor because you are educating the future leader and teaching the consumer science. So, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for consumer to move, to mobilize them, to make them aware and educated, to challenge the brand. And then more and more brand will be doing the right things.
Thank you so much, Rejaul. So yes, definitely we started with the leadership within the companies. As Tiffany described, the role of the leadership, and definitely it is very, very important. But then at the same time, consumers who are at the end of the supply chain have a lot of power as well. Lois, would you like to comment with respect to family care?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So in the space of consumer goods, especially paper products like Charmin and Bounty and Puffs, consumer demand for third-party certification is really important to drive available demand of these kinds of materials. And so consumers want to have a positive impact on the environment. And so the best way to do that is to look for certification seals on products. For example, Charmin and Puffs are FSC certified and supported by the Rainforest Alliance. And you can also find the FSC seal on Pampers Pure. But you know, part of the journey and the reason that that's so important, I didn't speak to this as one of the challenges, but available FSC certified material to put into our products is actually challenging. And so we have to do a lot of partnership with all kinds of organizations to increase that supply. but ultimately when consumers are looking for it and asking for it, and even in the space of lumber, when you build your house, ask your builder if you can have FSC certified lumber in your house. When you go to Home Depot or to Lowe's or Menards and you're going to do a construction project, ask for the FSC certified timber to do your project. And that's how we ensure more and more is available, and that those people that are supplying you the, timber are actually using responsible forestry methodologies and adhering to ways that will keep forests healthy and working forests as working forests.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lois. Very, very good point. Well, we do have quite a few students listening to our discussion today. So maybe a question on their behalf. What kind of jobs are there within your industries for sustainability-minded graduates?
Sure, I can dive into that one too. So sustainability is embedded in nearly all areas of our business. And so typically when we hire graduates, we hire engineers to go into manufacturing, engineering, and R&D. And our commercial side of the business typically hires a wider range of degrees from sales to marketing to finance. And then once you've been within a company like Procter & Gamble, you may end up specializing solely on sustainability, as I'm doing, but it's more often that you're doing some small piece like energy conservation work within a business, within manufacturing, or water conservation or efficiency work within the business that ultimately helps to deliver our footprint goals for the company.
Thank you, Lois.
Elena, if I can, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rejaul.
No, I'll quickly say that I also equal with Lois. I think, yes, this business, they're probably recruiting more like engineer and supply chain and other professionals, but within sustainability as an add-on, and then gradually move to the sustainability part. And as I was telling, like VF has a sustainability team of more than 100 people. Means there is definitely job there. There is definitely profession there. It's just how do you migrate there? How do you develop that skill set?
Jaleesa, go
Sorry,
ahead.
yeah.
Oh yeah, you're fine. Thank you so much. Yeah, I just to mirror those same sentiments. Forgive me, I just have to do a shameless plug because I'm in recruiting. I wouldn't be a recruiter if I didn't do this. You can literally go on jobs.cisco.com and type in sustainable or sustainability, and there are an array of jobs in engineering, as you both said, supply chain, operations as product managers, program managers. All of them would be roles that would be perfect for a sustainability-minded new grad. And also we'll have to add in there that my company offers programs like our Campus Career Link program. That, again, shameless plug, that is a mentorship program that allows students to connect with professionals that have that same mindset, where they'll be mentored on sustainability and the like. So if any student is interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me about that. But all of those roles align perfectly with sustainability as well.
Thank you.
Jaleesa, you reminded me to add something else. Like, for example, in VF, I have started just after my school. Maybe you have an MBA or you have post-graduation. Yeah, I joined for a program called VF Global Assurance, and I started as a supply chain analyst and then slowly migrated to the sustainability because during these years, I developed my experience and skill set in the sustainability area. So, I mean, the department is in Greensboro, so keep your eyes. I mean, it's a really exciting place to start your career.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more question, and then perhaps we can switch to the questions that we have in the chat. how could students prepare to work in the sustainability space of the future? What skills and knowledge would you suggest they can focus now while they're still in school? And to this point, perhaps all of us, how can we not only prepare but contribute to the sustainable future? So there are kind of two questions. One is maybe for students to prepare for their careers in the future. And then all of us as consumers, beyond what we have already discussed, what else can be done?
I'm gonna start this off. When we first started, I talked to you all about how I didn't know as a student, I didn't know much about sustainability until I took Dr. James's class. Hi, Dr. James. She's in here. Did not know she was in here. But I will say that talk to your professors. That's very important. And along with that, do the research, because sustainability and it being so important to employers is not going anywhere. It is a hot topic. It is very important all over the world. So I would say to students to do your research and also to change your habits a little bit. I remember I did not recycle. I did not grow up recycling. That was not a part of my family dynamic. I did not recycle until I got to UNCG. And I do not know if this is still a thing on campus, but we had the little blue bag hanging from the door. And I remember getting on campus, I was like, what in the heck is this? I don't need this. I do not recycle one bit. But we were encouraged so much to recycle and taught why it's so important to our environment. Again, I started doing research on my own and realized, wow, this is really important. So I started to change my habits up a little bit. I changed using plastic cups and started using something, again, more sustainable. So changing my habits up a little bit, that's very important, because what will happen is if you once you go out into the working world and start working for companies like some of the companies that my colleagues and I work for, where sustainability is very important, it can be a bit of a learning curve for you if you don't already implement those habits now. I know for me working at Cisco, sustainability again was such a hot topic when I got there. So to be able to have a professor such as Dr. James, who drilled that in our mind, to come from UNCG and the Bryan School, where that was drilled in us, and changing up my own habits, that prepared me to work in a sustainability space. So I would definitely encourage students to just change up their habits and to do their own research.
Great points.
If I could, I'd like to touch on your second question about being a good consumer. And the hospitality industry is riddled with hypocrisy almost. Think about going to your favorite coffee shop and you get the cup and you get the cardboard around the cup and you get the plug that goes in and you get the top and all that stuff. And so as consumers, we love to recycle at home, and we maybe change our sheets once a week at home, and maybe use a towel 3 or 4 times at home. But then when you're out in these environments and in the hospitality world, people are expecting they're different things. So I would say, to be a good consumer, think about the practices you do at home and how they apply to what you're doing when you're out in a restaurant or at a hotel. For sure, it's incredible how much waste there is. And the reality with our industry is that the answer is always yes for our guests. It's whatever. Yes, the answer is yes. And now tell me the question. But for a good consumer, the question has to be an environmentally sound one or a sustainably sound one. And speak with your dollars. And I love that we've talked about doing research on the companies that you are doing business with. Go to their websites. I know on our website, one of the first things we talk about is, our fairness doctrine and how we look at, the injustices that are going on out there. And when you go to those businesses, look around. Are there opportunities for people that are underrepresented, or does everybody look the same? And so I just think that just being more aware of what you're doing not just talking about it in certain environments, but really trying to live it in your life wherever you go is really going to help, one, be a good consumer, but two, have a great place in hospitality, which we need lots of people right now, by the way. We're in a crisis for hiring. So I'm going to plug that too. But yeah, I just, all in all, just I think is the message here, and really apply what you say to your whole life.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tiffany. That was great. Lois and Rejaul, would you like to make maybe final comments?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just add one line, Dr. Elena. I think it's important to understand the sustainability and study that and develop that skill set. But I think it's also important to understand the business of it, right? Because I mean, guess what? We can probably solve a lot more sustainability problem yesterday if resource is not a problem, right? But the real world, there is a resource constraint. So how do you make something, produce something socially and environmentally responsible way, but it is also affordable and attainable to the consumer? So the moment you understand the business side and the money side, you bring that things, it's easier for people to develop a solution, right? To develop a business case. So anyone wants to come this discipline, I think it's an important skill set to develop also, to understand the language of business.
Wonderful. Great point.
Yep. And the other thing that I think is very key, and I know this is true for us at Procter & Gamble, for anyone who starts in an organization, you must excel at what you do. So master what you're learning in college, come work for a company and do your best, knock people's socks off, and you earn the right to ask for what you would like to do next. And so let people know that sustainability is a space where you'd like to work, you'd like to have a role in influencing the direction. And I'm amazed at the young people in our company who are either young activists or promoters of sustainability. And for us, sustainability falls under the umbrella of citizenship, and that includes all of the things that Tiffany was mentioning a moment ago that have to do with how people are treated within our company, within our supply chains, our environmental sustainability, our social and legal, all of those elements come together under this citizenship umbrella. And so if that's a passion area where you want to play a role, being really good at what you do and then communicating that, and then the doors open in those spaces where you want to really play. So keep doing good, keep being sustainable, and take it one day at a time. We don't these things don't happen overnight, I guess, is the other thing. Yeah, and be patient as you step into your work life.
Wonderful. Great piece of advice. Thank you so much, Lois. So we have Maddie now, and she will let us know what are the questions in the chat.
Hi. We have a ton of questions in the chat, and we are definitely not going to be able to get to all of them. So just panelists, keep that in mind. Keep your responses short and sweet, and we can knock a few of these out. Question for Rejaul. How do you make sure that the whole supply chain, which is complex, of the apparel production, that they're reducing their carbon footprint and also face issues about people in the triple bottom line? And I'm going to tag on a little piece to that. Do you make it possible for people to trace that that supply chain?
How many minutes I have, Madeline, to answer that? I can talk in 1 hour. No, I'm kidding. Okay, I'll be brief and quick. Yes, I think as a VF, what we do, we have a team dedicated, and we actively map out our entire supply chain, not only our materials production, but our all kind of operation, to identify how much is our footprint, and what are the area where we can do better, what are the hottest spots, And then we work with the third party, sometimes different stakeholder, even with the extended to the policy level to see what we need to mobilize there to reduce our footprint. So for example, we have several, VF is a public limited company. We have several public facing goals and public commitment, things like by 2025, we'll use 100% renewable energy. By 2025, we'll reduce 35% of our materials footprint. And when you make this public commitment, it means behind that, we have the tracking program, and we are already mobilizing our resources to move to more regenerative, more sustainable materials. Even they're a little expensive, but we are moving there because we think that's the right things to do. So of course, we are doing that. And when you see on the people side, I think there is different layer of program we have here at VF. First of all, we monitor all our contract manufacturer. We audit them in their factory to make sure they're compliant with VF Code of Conduct and the labor human rights. And then if we find any issues, then there is another team in VF, we call it sustainable operation. They go there, they help the supplier and the factory to improve on those points. And then on top of that, we also have another team, what we call worker rights team at VF, where the team work on more on the long-term issue, some of the systemic challenges. For example, you cannot solve the living wage issue just by one company in a few months project, right? You need to work with your peers, with the stakeholder to solve that problem. So that's the third layer of the VF team who works on solving their systemic challenges. And quickly on the traceability, guys, please feel free to go to the vfc.com. We have a traceability tab in vfc.com. You can go and click, and you can see at least for, I think, top 40 most selling products. You can click on the product and you can see exactly from where the fiber is coming, where the yarn is coming, fabric, and where it goes, and how finally it goes to the retail store. And I think we are really one of the leader in the industry to make that traceability map. So
I think that transparency is really a big piece. And we talked about that in a session earlier today that doesn't get mentioned very much. So that's fantastic.
Yes. And it's complex. So I'm very proud that VF has done that.
Awesome. Okay, this question is for Tiffany. What are some goals that your hotel has set or are setting towards sustainability? Maybe some things we don't already know or can't see.
Sure. So for those who don't know, my hotel, The Proximity, was the first LEED Platinum certified hotel in North America. So in terms of sustainability from an environmental side, you never really check the box, but we're fortunate enough that we have a lot of just things that are just built in. You know, we have, if you drive by the hotel, you can see that we have solar panels on the top that help, take care of the water needs. And, we have special elevators that do different things. And there's a lot that we've incorporated from that perspective. But I think the part that, people probably don't see the most, and it's kind of what I've been preaching on a little bit, is the people side of things and how dedicated our company has been to taking care of people during this time of COVID in particular. So we had to furlough, I think over 500 people at one point. And we called our staff, and we called them every other week, or at least monthly. And we asked how they were doing, and we told them that we cared about them, and we maintained those relationships. And then as different opportunities came open, we extended those to them. And, we had people that had donated money to take care of our staff members when they were on furlough. And there's just so many different things that we did for the people, and now getting them back. And so, I think really understanding, I wish I could really talk about all the things we do from a social justice side of things, because that's the part that I'm particularly proud of with our company. So a lot of those things, like I said, you can read on the website, and I could talk about forever, but I will spare you because I know we're almost out of time. So I hope that answers the question.
Sounds like we need another expo.
Great.
Okay, Lois, how many products at P&G have certification seals?
So there are lots of different certification seals, but the ones that I think are really important associated with Earth Day are the Forest Stewardship Council. And so the FSC label is on Charmin and Puffs and Pampers Pure, And you can also find Bounty Advanced. That's like not our whole Bounty brand, but a fraction of our Bounty brand that actually has the FSC label on it. And then in Europe, we the Always brand is also carrying the FSC. Well, and Pampers in Europe are also FSC labeled across the board, but Pampers Pure is just a portion of the Pampers total brand here in North America.
I think we need to go ahead and cut off the questions for now. I do want to make sure that we plug VF Corporate Foundation for making this event possible with their support. Through the partnership with VF Corporation Foundation, the virtual collaboratory supports the Bryan School's efforts to foster innovative, collaborative, and transformative research through teaching on the topic of sustainable business practices. I'm going to turn it back over to Elena, and thank you guys. Great questions.
Yes, thank you for the great questions to all of our guests, and a big, big thank you to our panelists. It was a wonderful discussion. And just to sum up what I have, like little notes here of our discussion, sustainability is action word. So it does call for action. And everyone has to accept responsibility. Whether you're a consumer, whether you're a director, leadership, everyone is responsible. And we can all excel in what we do and to be sustainable, to make a difference in the world. So this is your words, guys. I just jotted them down here. And I love, and I think they make just a beautiful theme to finish up the session and to finish the first ever Sustainability in Business Expo. Thank you so much.
Great job, everyone. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. Be checking your email for more information about the sessions and just some follow-ups and some main points, and hopefully some contact information for our panelists. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great afternoon.